Good morning, boys and girls. It's Friday. We are reading in our new book, which is called Poppy and Rye. And if we remember what happened yesterday, Poppy finally convinced Erith to go with her on a trip to tell Ragweed's mom and dad the terrible news. Chapter 5. Some words are exchanged. Now, think about that. That doesn't sound like it would be friendly, does it? If you say words are exchanged, sounds like somebody's going to be grumbling at somebody else. So kind of make a prediction as to who you think might be grumbling. And if you hear a strange sound while we're reading, that is my dog playing with her toy, and she's got herself all worked up. So don't worry about the growling sounds in the background. Chapter 5. The day after they moved, Rye, Thistle, and Curly Dock crouched beneath a tangle of blackberry bushes and looked out over the pond. "There's one," Rye hissed. A fat beaver had climbed atop a particular large mound of sticks in the pond not far from the dam. It was dumping and soothing mud on the mound's surface. "That's their main lodge," Rye said with authority, though it was Valerian who had informed him of that fact only the day before. "How do they get into it?" Curly Dock asked. As the family went, Curly Dock was on the small side and rather plump like his mother. "There's an underwater passageway," Rye said. "You have to swim deep to get in there." "Good," murmured Thistle, tall and sleek, with swept-back whiskers and narrow ears. She was a good swimmer. "It's not cool," Rye said sharply. "They have no right to come and just take over everything. Look what happened to our nest." He waved a paw over the water. "Gone. You call that cool?" Thistle shrank down. "I was just saying the beaver's home is interesting." "Look," Curly Dock whispered. 3 beavers had surfaced near the shore. They tumbled and turned, smacking the water with their large, flat tails. "Big, aren't they?" Thistle said, her voice full of awe. "They look like they're having fun," Curly Dock said wistfully. "Fun?" Rye snarled under his breath. "I hate them. I'd like to give them a piece of fun." "When Ragweed gets back, he'll do it," Curly Dock said. "He's not afraid of anyone." "Ragweed's gone," Rye snapped. "Besides," he went on, "who needs him? I'm not afraid of them." Thistle stared at her elder brother with wide eyes. "You mean you'd talk to them?" "No big thing," Rye replied, "except Ragweed wouldn't say he would," Curly Dock said and snickered. "He'd just do it." Rye felt hot. So would I. "Dare you," his brother gloated. "Double dare." Rye, suddenly nervous, said, "I'll do it if you come with me." "You first," Thistle replied. Rye, suddenly nervous, said, "Okay." Rye considered the beavers anew. "See," Curly Dock said, "I told you, you're no ragweed." Rye offered his brother a dirty look, then crawled out from under the berry bush. Wanting his heart not to beat so fast, he yanked his whiskers. He wished they were darker, stiffer, licked down the half of his chest, then headed back towards the water, tail tucked between trembling legs. Halfway to the pond, Rye halted. "You coming or not?" he called back, hoping he sounded cocky. Thistle scampered to his brother's side. The two checked back. "Well?" Rye asked. Curly Doc crept forward. The three mice inched to the water's edge near where the three beavers were playing. The beavers paid them no attention. "Go on, tell 'em what you think," Curly Doc said, giving Rye a nudge. "You know, the way Ragweed would." Feeling he could not back down, a jittery Rye cupped his front paws around his mouth to make himself heard. "Hey, you!" he shouted. The beavers halted their play and looked about with dripping muzzles. "Were you speaking to us?" one of them asked. "You're the one who dammed our brooks, aren't you?" The beavers exchanged looks. One of them padded through the water until she was close to the mice. Her orange front teeth were enormous. The three mice retreated a few steps. "My name is Clara. Clara Canid. What's yours?" "Rye." "Something bothering you, Rye?" Rye took a breath. "You beavers just barged into our neighborhood and took over. Ruined the brook. Ruined the land. Ruined our nest. You're thoughtless and greedy." "Hey, fella," Clara retorted, "making a pond in progress." "Progress?" Rye cried. "Progress for you, maybe. What about the rest of us? Who invited you here anyway?" "No one invited us," Clara replied. "Do you mice own this brook?" "Well, no." "There's a sign posted, reserved for mice only?" "No, but..." "And it's still a free country, isn't it?" "I suppose." "Well then, don't you think we've got the right to build our lodges here?" "But it's not right," a confused Rye cried. "You destroyed our nest." "Hey, sorry to hear about it," Clara returned. "There's always a price to pay for progress." "But who's paying that price?" Ray screamed. "We are. The ones who live here. You just flood, flood, flood." "I'd be more than happy to talk to you in a civil way," the beaver returned. "But if all you can do is rant and rave, I'd just as soon not listen." She turned about, and as she drew away, she lifted her tail and brought it down hard and flat upon the water, sending out a great spray that thoroughly soaked the mice. Sopping wet, the mice ran off, but not before Thistle stopped and shouted back at the beavers. "You just wait till my brother Ragweed comes home," she cried. "He'll fix you." And there's a picture of the little mice with the beaver. So the words that were exchanged were between Rye, who is Ragweed's little brother, and the beavers. Chapter 6, Rye. The pond-side meeting with the beavers had infuriated and humiliated Rye. It wasn't only the beavers that had upset him, it was all the talk about his brother Ragweed. Rye loved his elder brother a lot, admired him, looked up to him. But if Ragweed wasn't teasing Rye, he was lecturing him, telling him the best way to do something, saying Rye was doing something wrong. Rye chafed under such treatment, despised it. So there were times Rye was quite sure he hated Ragweed too. It seemed that no matter what he did, his whole family, mother, father, brothers, and sisters, was holding Ragweed up as the best. Rye was sure they were always comparing him to Ragweed, unfavorably. As far as Rye was concerned, it wasn't fair. I'm not Ragweed, he continually reminded them. I'm me. It didn't help that Rye and Ragweed looked so much alike. Though a few months younger than Ragweed, Rye was just as long and thin and had the same sharp, penetrating gaze and noble nose. The way most knew how to tell the brothers apart was that small notch in Rye's right ear. But whereas Ragweed was blunt, even cocky, Rye was considered the more thoughtful mouse. Something of a dreamer, a romantic, Clover said, with a wistful shake of her head. Rye often wandered nearby meadows where he liked to fling himself under a flower and daydream of romantic adventures. When he returned, flower in paw, and was asked what he'd done, he'd reply, "Oh, nothing. Some thinking, I suppose." "But what were you thinking about? Today?" "Oh, the sky, clouds, and flowers." It was only when Ragweed left home that Rye came into his own. Now he was the eldest of the children at home. Now the younger ones looked up to him. Now his parents called upon him to do things. His opinion was asked. He was heard. Yet, even as that happened, Rye feared things would remain that way only until Ragweed returned. Hadn't Curly Dock said as much when Rye tried to speak to the beavers? Hardly a wonder then that, as far as Rye was concerned, there were moments he hoped Ragweed would not come home. Of course, he wouldn't say anything like that. The thought made him feel ashamed. It seemed unnatural, sinful. So it was that after he shouted insults at the beavers and was splashed away for his efforts, Rye returned to the family, its new nest, in a deep sulk. To make things worse, no one seemed to understand why he was sulking. "What's the matter with Rye?" one of his younger brothers asked Thistle. "Just daydreaming." "He's always daydreaming." Later that day, Valerian called upon Rye to join him while he went to forage for food. A reluctant Rye heaved himself up and went along. Father and son went out behind the boulder and took a path that led them to an old patch of sunflowers. The flowers had been planted years ago by humans, or so the mice believed, and sunflowers had grown upon that spot ever since. The great round yellow blossoms, like so many tethered suns, nodded and bobbed. Even better, as far as the mice were concerned, It was a fine place for sunflower seed gathering. Rye and Valerian had gathered a fair pile of seeds when Valerian asked, "What's the problem, Rye? You're acting kind of droopy." "Oh, never mind," Rye mumbled. "You sure?" "Well, yes." Rye, who always assumed no one would listen to him, found it hard to express himself. In fact, he wished he were more like Ragweed. Ragweed always told everybody exactly what he was thinking. Valerian sat down, leaned against a stump, put a blade of grass in his teeth, and adjusted his arms behind his head. "This business of the beavers, the brook, and all they've done, it's upsetting. It is. Still, the family has done pretty well considering. Of course, your mother has been grand, always is. You do know what a fine mother you have, don't you, son?" "Lovely creature," he murmured. "Truly lovely." "I suppose," Rice said. He sat down next to his father. "Truth is," Valerian continued with a rueful shake of his head, "it doesn't seem like there's much we can do. Beavers are big and powerful. They don't want us to listen to us. I'm just hoping they'll stop building. Now, of course," Valerian's voice trailed off. "Of course what?" Rye asked. Valerian threw the grass blade away and reached over to the seed pile. He looked it over, selected a seed, polished it against his chest, then took a bite. "What?" Rye prompted. "Oh," Valerian finally said, "your mother doesn't say, though it does slip out now and again. I'm fairly sure she thinks that when Ragweed comes home, he'll solve everything." Rye stiffened. "Do you think so?" he asked, ready to bolt up and walk off. "No," his father said. He took another bite of the seed and chewed thoughtfully. "You don't?" said Rye, taken by surprise. "Why?" Instead of answering, Valerian remained quiet and stared off into the distance. Now and again he nibbled at his seed. "Well, son, it's a big world out there, full of possibilities, dangers. Your brother isn't shy. He likes getting into things. Seems to me if he was coming back, well, he would have done so by now." There was a tremor in his voice. Shocked, Rye looked around. Do you think something happened to him?" he asked. Something in his world shifted. At first, Valerian only nodded. It took a moment for him to speak. "Don't know for sure, of course, do I?" There was another pause. "But, well, I've got this bad feeling. But that would be awful," Rice said, gazing at his father's sad face. Yet, hadn't he almost wished for it? "Yep, it'd be pretty sad, all right," his father said. Do you think," Rice said, "I should go and look for him?" "No," Valerian said. Ragweed could be anywhere. If he's coming back, he'll come in his own sweet time. Besides, we don't want you disappearing too. Rye hesitated before saying, "Why?" "We need you, Rye," Valerian said. "We need you a lot." Rye almost burst into tears of gratitude, but then he asked, "Does that mean that if Ragweed did come back, you wouldn't need me?" "Son," Valerian said, "all I'm saying is, I don't think Ragweed is coming back." Rye, however, noticed that his father had not really answered his question. What would Rye's place be if Ragweed returned? Disappointed, he did not want to ask again. His thoughts were already too confused. That night, Rye could not sleep. Wedged in amidst his family in the one-room nest, he kept thinking about his talk with his father. What had happened to Ragweed? Would his brother come back? What would happen if he did? In particular, Rye wondered what would happen to him if Ragweed came home. Would he be ignored again? The more Rye thought about it, the more unappreciated he felt. He forgot how wonderful it had been when his father had talked to him mouse to mouse. Instead, he thought, Pa was telling me not to go off only because Ragweed is gone. It was but a matter of moments before Rye was saying to himself, "Who pays attention to me?" He answered his own question quickly. Nobody. Perhaps he thought it would be a good thing if he went off to look for Ragweed. When he found him, he'd tell his brother he was needed at home. Then Rye could go off and have his own adventures. On the other paw, Rye mused, if he could not find Ragweed, but could discover what had happened to him, he could bring that sad news to his family. Not only could they be at rest with the matter, he could take his permanent place as the eldest child at home. It was the middle of the night. The whole nest was asleep, except Rye. He got up quietly. There were no particular belongings he needed or wanted to take. Still, he thought it best to leave something to tell his parents where he was going. They might even think he was doing something brave as well as useful. Finding a pale leaf, he wrote a goodbye note. Dear Mom and Pa, farewell. I've gone into the great world to search for Ragweed. Fear not, I shall return. Your devoted son, Rye. Rye took a deep breath. The night was balmy, sweet with the smell of growing things. The moon appeared calm in the velvet black sky. The grass was soft beneath his toes. The whole world seemed full and ripe. Rye's slim chest swelled with emotion. Oh, to have something important happen to him at last. Oh, to be noticed, to be told by someone, Rye, how glad I am to see you. Yet was he, Rye kept wondering, doing the right thing by going? I'm doing it for the family, he told himself. It has nothing to do with me at all. With the thought firmly embedded in his heart, Rye set off. He was heading due east. Okay, we've got another family member that is off on an adventure. And I don't know what's going to happen to Rye. That's a great prediction to think about. There are just tons of things that could happen to him. Let's see, he's going to the east. So he is heading, I believe, let's go back and we'll look at our map. We got another map. I'm glad we have these maps. East would be towards Dimwood Forest. So he is heading towards Dimwood Forest. So I don't know. You have a nice weekend. I'll see you on Monday. Bye.